So here we are, episode 4 of She Talks, all about therapy, business, and life. So today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what's going on with me. So kind of how ends up kind of going is I have a guest and then I do a solo episode, then I'll have a guest. Again, we'll see kind of how it shakes out since we're early in this process. But again, if you're new here, you might be wondering, what? Therapy, life, business? Well, because I'm Amy Hood and I talk about all of those all the time. And so I wanted to, again, give you guys a sneak peek into kind of what's going on with me. A lot of you guys seem to be interested in that as far as, okay, but how did you get where you are? How do you keep students successful? How does all this work? So, and again, I'm all about sharing my stories and how I think and how I got to where I am today, and what are my continued struggles, because that's something that people often connect with, and whether that's in business or therapy or again just life. And I'm usually a pretty open book as far as, if you really want to know something, just ask. What I try to do, and I don't know where this kind of came from, is I try to speak from the scar, not the wound. And Brené Brown has a thing where she says, if you're ready to tell the story, if the response from the other person, you're not dependent upon to have a positive or negative response for you to feel a certain way. So for me, again, I know I'm ready to tell a story when I can tell it to someone, and if they go, or like, oh, it's fine either way. I know my story. I know what's going on. So those of you guys who've been around for a little bit kind of know the backstory. I've been a therapist for almost 20 years now. I was married for 17 years. About 3.5 years ago, filed for a divorce. I have been married, it'll be 2 years in November, to my current husband. Jimmy's his name. He's a lawyer. He is the absolute love of my life. Somebody that I never thought I would get remarried. I never really thought that there would be any reason for that. But he, we kind of fell into each other, and the rest is history. So my life has changed quite a bit in the last 5 years, going, from understanding life is a certain way to life being very different now in all kinds of realms. And so trying to adjust to that. Now, one other piece of the story that you probably need to know about me is I was born super, super anxious. Just kind of popped out that way. Very one of those kids who was colicky and didn't calm down easily, stressed all the time. In first grade, I threw up all the time because I was afraid I had to have a substitute bus driver. So again, very highly anxious, and also generalized anxiety, or major depression as well. So those have been my companion pretty much my whole life. My mid-20s, I was able to get on some meds finally, and much, much better system since then. Like, my system's been better. I have tried to get off my meds, just be honest, a couple of times. My body reacts really, really strongly though. And my eyes swell shut. I go in hives. My lips swell. It's not pretty, and you can't see clients like that either. So it's kind of the body keeps the score and the body says no. So now I just kind of consider it a multivitamin, and this is Lexapro, Effexor, benzo as needed, and understand that that's okay as well. I have no shame. That's part of what I need to be the best version of Amy. Now, the other part of that is I'm also in therapy as well. I want to be the best version of me for myself, my clients, you guys, my family, friends, and I can't really read the ketchup bottle from the inside. So I often need a therapist to help. Now, I have a current therapist is great. Her name's Brooke. I doubt she's watching this or anything. She's a young therapist. And for those of you guys who ever think that, oh, I'm a young therapist, what do I know? That's not true. I had a mentor in grad school often tell me one time that just because you have been doing this a while, you've been a therapist a while, doesn't mean you're a good one. You could be doing bad therapy for years. It just means you've been a therapist for a while. And that really, really stuck with me. So again, I want to reach out to you guys who maybe you're listening to this and maybe you're a therapist or, whatever profession you're in. Just because you're young doesn't mean you're bad. My therapist has lots of training and she's really, really good. So I wanted to tell you kind of a story that's really near and dear in my heart that has really shifted things in the last several months, even for me. So when I was married to my first husband, we worked a lot. We built businesses. I do not have children of my own. I have a stepson now who's 8, but I couldn't quite figure out how I was going to have kids and work and build businesses. And so opted out to kind of go out that route. So that's part of the story as well. But really doubled down on, I worked a whole lot. And we built businesses, did a very, very good job. That was one thing that actually worked until it didn't, kind of thing. But again, to be able to do that in your life, you live a certain way and know how you operate and see yourself. So when that marriage ended, all of a sudden I was like, who am I? I couldn't work because of all the legal stuff that was going on there. Well, then I don't really know who I am. I met Jimmy, again, my husband, quickly fell in love with him. Amazing. One of the best things that ever happened to me. But again, my life is very, very different. I now have, again, a stepson and we have about half the time. So again, what does that look like? How does that look like? In this almost 2 years now, well, really 3 years, maybe even before that, because no one wakes up and decides today I'm going to get divorced because I'm super, super happy. I always tell people, if you cannot get divorced, do that because it is awful. It is a hard, hard road. I'm glad that I did it. My life is much better now, but it is definitely not easy. But anyway, so maybe 5 years or so, I felt like I've just kind of been off kilter. I really don't. I felt unmoored is what I described to my best friend, Rebecca, unmoored. So again, I've been in therapy, have done a lot of my own work, have wrestled with this demon, so to speak, of like, who am I? What am I here for? What does my life look like? Because again, like I mentioned before, my parents have moved, my sister-in-law and brother and the kids have moved. And so a lot of my life kind of revolved around them. So again, what does this look like? So my therapist does EMDR and IFS work as well, internal family systems, if you're not sure what that is. And of course, EMDR, like EMDR is super prolific now. Everybody knows about EMDR. Wasn't the case over a decade or so. But she does both of those. And as I was working with her during this one session, some things had come up and I just kind of said, I just don't feel like, I kept saying, I don't feel like myself. I don't know who this version is of Amy. I can't quite, it's like if you've outgrown clothes and you try to fit back in them and you're not sure why it doesn't fit, it's itchy and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit what it felt like walking through my life. And then, of course, different things happen. And she had said, well, did you feel like, I said, well, that was like almost a different person back 5 years ago. And she said, well, probably it was. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She said, well, you've been through a lot of things. And again, how this came up, I said, I felt like that version of Amy had to die in order to get through that and to be able to function and get through the divorce and all the stuff that went through that. I had to come out a different person on the other end. It was just inevitable. And again, using IFS terms, it was, okay, so does the current Amy know that? Does the 2022 Amy, 2021 Amy, what are they, because remember parts work and trauma, when trauma happens and it gets embedded even implicitly, there's no timestamp. So really what was happening is I was getting triggered when things would happen, and it was almost as if things were happening again and again and again, and I couldn't quite figure out my way out of it. So what we did, she led me in exercise, and I held the EMDR buzzer paddle things, and led me through a parts work exercise that was amazing. And again, I wanted to share with you to see, again, if you're not a therapist, if you are, to be able to go, this is something also you can think about and do as well. So she had me describe that Amy that used to be. What does she look like? What, what does she say? What are some things to be able to go, where is she? And so again, that Amy from 2021, 2020, again, in my brain, describe and meet her as to who I am today. As to, again, okay, this is 2025, to actually go in and in my brain kind of meet that person and say, hey. And she said, thank that person. And I was just crying because I said, she worked so hard. She worked so hard to keep things going and move in the right direction and be able to build those businesses and stay in the marriage. She worked so hard, and I'm so thankful for her. And my therapist said, do you need her right now? And I was like, no, I don't. I'm okay. And so then we went to kind of a safe space exercise. So where do you want to where can that Amy? And she said, let's name her. And I said, well, that'd be Aunt Amy, because I was I got to see my nieces and nephew all the time. And that was, again, very much part of my identity. I said, let's Aunt Amy. So, okay, where does Aunt Amy get to be? I said, she's in a library, and it's really soft, and she gets to just rest. And again, I'm just crying this whole time. And she said, okay, so let her know that you've got it. Again, here we are, May 2025, and you've got it. She can rest. So if there comes up, you start feeling and reacting in that way out of that old person, you can remember and say, no, remember, it's 2025. I've got it. You can rest. And to allow her to read and give her a book or give her a TikTok or whatever she needs, just to chill, because she did the work. She did what she had to do to survive. And now, because you have done what you need to do, here we are at this different version of Amy, this different part, hopefully the self-led part that can, operate out of. So it was an amazing, amazing shift that happened in me. I mean, after that session, I went home and told my husband. I called my best friend. I talked to some of my friends at work. I was like, this was amazing. I mean, it was like, all this stuff, now we know, of course, it's integrated, but from what it felt like in my body is I felt so much lighter. It was like I could see more clearly. And since then, I have felt more like myself. I've been able to be more self-led than I ever have been before, maybe. The businesses are running. I've been able to be more present with everybody. I've been sleeping better, all those kind of things. And so, again, I tell that story to you that hopefully it may give you some insight into what's going on with you. Maybe if you feel unmoored or wondering why you're reacting out of these old patterns, it's probably an old part that's kind of taking the lead that is not really needed. And to allow yourself to work through that in the Sandtray with a therapist or even a friend. Lots of us have therapist friends, so we're very, very lucky to have that. So again, I wanted to give you that gift of my story. And there's still been times when I kind of feel like Aunt Amy's hanging around, and I will mentally go, no, you can go to the library. You can stay here and read your book and just rest. And it's okay. I've got it. And to be able to appreciate this version of what my life is and all the amazing gifts that I have, even if it's not what I had thought it was going to look like. And it's okay. So again, I wanted to share that part of my life with you and wanted to know if you maybe feel the same or you have felt, or what does IFS look like for you? Sandtray work, IFS and Sandtray meld so well together because again, you're working with that implicit memory and those old parts. And when you bring them up into the explicit, then when you make the implicit explicit, you can change it. It becomes part of your narrative. So again, this is part of me talking from the scar, not the wound, because I've worked through a lot of this. I wouldn't have been telling you guys this story 3-4 years ago. Absolutely not. And so maybe even a year from now, I can tell you even more stories that are going out right now that maybe I'm not ready to share. And I like to say, and Brené Brown says, we love vulnerability in other people. We hate it in ourselves. And I want to be saying somebody who goes, yeah, I'll stay. I'll talk about my stuff. People are drawn to that. So again, I want to encourage you to do that, whether, in your professional, personal relationships, all that kind of stuff, but with the caveat of, like Brené Brown says, again, we don't want to tweet our bikini wax. We don't want to overshare and try to hotwire that connection. But again, to speak from that place of, I'm not perfect. I get it. I've done maybe the wrong thing. I always say, ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. Most times because I messed up. I did the wrong thing. So again, if you are in that place, know that you're not alone and it can get better. It will get better if it feels like life is so hard. Well, sometimes because it is. But it is, there's hope. And oftentimes you just have to walk through it. You don't get a choice. You have to walk through it. But again, I encourage you to do your own work. Everybody benefits because, the old saying is that the people who don't do their own work it out on other people. So, and that's not fair to anybody. So again, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this was just a kind of a little story out of what's going on with Amy Hood. Again, subscribe, share, whatever. Again, reply. I would love to hear from you. What are some of your stories if this resonated? And where you are in your journey. All right, guys, till next time. Bye.